Welcome to the Lost and Found podcast. I'm your host, Amanda. Join me each week as I rediscover my life's meaning, my passions, and my place in this world after leaving behind the only dream I've ever known. If you are dealing with self-loss, identity changes, career transitions, or you are still trying to figure out your life's purpose, then you're not alone. Join me. Wanderers are always welcome. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Lost and Found podcast. This is your host, Amanda. I am so excited. We're having a great day today. We've got a brand new guest on the mic with us. I'm bringing Lori Pappas to the show. She's an award-winning entrepreneur, philanthropist, accomplished author, and she has a new book out called The Magic of Yes, Embrace the Wise Woman Within, which invites readers to explore their inner strength, rediscover their essence, and chart their life filled with authenticity and purpose. And Lori, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks, Amanda. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, this is so great. Where are you coming in from? I was reading some of your book, and you have been in Africa, you've been in the US, you've been abroad, all over. Like, where are you these days?
Well, hopefully, I'm finally at 75 years old in my forevermore home, but we're in Santa Rosa, California, so about an hour and a half north of San Francisco.
Oh, lovely. I actually have a friend that's getting married in the Napa area in June, so I'll be out in California soon.
Well, great. You'll have to stop by. It's a lovely, lovely place.
Yes,
we love it.
It is. It really is. I haven't been to California in a long time, but I do love it there. San Diego is one of my dream cities to be in. You can get to the beach, you can get to the mountains, you can get to the desert so quickly, and it's fun. It's a great area. So that's awesome. Well, Lori, for some of my listeners, my readers, I don't have any readers yet, but for my listeners that may not have had the chance to read your book yet or learn about all of your philanthropic work and your humanitarian efforts, could you tell us a bit about you and what kind of led you to that, living that life? You know, what were some of the things in maybe your childhood that kind of shaped the woman that you became today?
Well, that's about a 65,000 word question, but let me give you the real quick overview. So I was born in Minnesota, and I had a very traumatic childhood. My mother was a religious fanatic and thought that I was possessed by the devil. So I ended up in the nut house, and I managed to escape when I was 16. And that's a whole other story. But what that did was that made me realize that I had to be in charge of my own life, that I really couldn't count on anybody else to help me out. So that was one thing that taught me. And the other thing it did was I developed very, very tough skin outside that would protect me from anybody challenging me. And the good part of that was I became a very successful competitor in a very male-dominated world, in the world of small manufacturing. The bad side of that was that I didn't really access my feelings because I was just underneath that protective shell. I sold my business when I was 49 and tried to retire. And I ended up failing retirement. I got bored. All of a sudden, my purpose was gone because my entrepreneurial career had defined my life. And my whole self-worth was tied up into what I was doing and what I was able to accomplish. And we'll dial back to that in a moment. But then I went on and traveled a lot. I also was failing marriages during this time as well. I was now on my second marriage, wasn't happy, but still stuck in it. And in traveling, I came across a little gal in Niger, in the Sahara Desert, and she had flies on her face. And that was a real epiphany to me, that this little girl could have been my granddaughter Ella. It was about the same age. And my little darling Ella had done nothing to be born my granddaughter. And this little girl had done nothing wrong to be born into this disease-ridden life. So I was looking for a new purpose, and all of a sudden I found it. It was I was going to try to get the flies off the face of all these children in Africa. So I have to admit I've always been an overachiever, so I didn't quite know how to scale all that down. But I did end up living in a very remote area in Ethiopia, working with very marginalized people. And during that time, I started another organization. It grew. We had quite a broad reach. We were helping about 100,000 people, and I was busy doing again. But I was based in Addis Ababa, which is the capital of Ethiopia.
Mm-hmm.
And I would work really hard during the day, and it was a struggle because there were communication issues, there were real severe issues with the government, a lot of rules and regulations, and noise, 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 constant noise. And by the time I would get home from work at night, I would be really tired, and it would be cold because Addis Ababa is very high in altitude. And I'd wrap myself up in these blankets, and I would sit down ready to read, and then the electricity would go out. And all I would have would be the light of my 3 candles. And I was forced to sit there and just think. And I started asking myself, well, what if I stopped doing all the time? What if I really started thinking about all these things that I was seeing and observing, and just really paused and reflected? And what if I said yes to being, not just doing? And suddenly it just felt magical. And that's what brought about the genesis of my book, The Magic of Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I learned how to embrace that wise woman within. So that's really what, then, I should really include that. And after about 10 years, I was forced out of the country because of conflict. And I ended up online dating and met the love of my life, even though I swore I was never, ever, 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 ever going to get into another relationship. And moved to Mexico and eventually back to the States. And here I am, 75 years old, starting my third career. So that's me in a nutshell.
I love it. That sounds like the coolest nutshell that's ever existed. You've had so many evolutions, and everything you started to say, I'm like, oh, I want to ask about that. I want to ask about that. I want to ask about that, because there's so many twists and turns that clearly impacted how you were thinking. And I love that that's the way that you made it to the magic of yes, was learning how to stop doing, just doing for the sake of doing, but being. And I've been learning a whole lot more and trying to do research for myself, trying to understand how I feel and what I'm trying to do and what I want to be. Not necessarily when I grow up, but who is the woman I want to become? And I've been learning a lot about existential psychology and philosophy. And a lot of that's about understanding yourself and accepting your free will and your choice and the responsibilities that come with making those choices and the consequences of not making a choice as well. But it kind of sounds like you've found a way to say yes to things, which opens up the other opportunities in your life that you may not have expected, like love coming back around for a third time, right? Or is it or a fourth? I'm not sure. It sounds like you had quite an adventurous life, which is wonderful and gives me a whole lot of hope at being single and have not been married. But I think it's just learning how to stay open and not shutting yourself off, like getting rid of your shell, kind of like what you talked about. You lived in a place based on trauma, but you found a way to open up and help others. And by helping others, you helped yourself. And it blossomed into a life you probably never would have imagined otherwise.
I'll tell you the one thing that I think has really, really served me well is the idea of being in a corner and not having options gives me the shivers and the willies. And yeah, I don't like that. I like options. And what does that really say? It really says that if you look at any situation as a place to explore options, wow, that opens up the universe. And the other thing that I find really helpful and drove my first two husbands nuts. I am on the third.
Okay.
I'm not getting married again.
No.
This is the last
Well,
one.
congratulations though on finding the right relationship for you and it working out.
Right.
That honestly, it is very rare no matter what age you're at. So it is wonderful.
Right. And while we're on that subject, let me just give you the tip line that you want to look for.
Okay.
The line that that Bill used that nailed it for me was when we first got together, I said, okay, this is okay for right now, but just know that don't ever expect me to marry you. And he said, that's okay. Why don't we just be unfettered and free together? And, you know, that's really it, is to be unfettered and free. And if you can be unfettered and free together, then that's great.
Yeah, I like that.
Anyway, you had asked me another question and I went off on a tangent.
No, it's okay. We have so many tangents. This might end up being a tangent podcast, but maybe we can. You mentioned so many great things, so maybe we can go. I tried to base the questions I sent you kind of what I thought the order might go in, just to kind of touch on different points. So maybe we could go back to the childhood stuff you touched on. Every now and then we've had a few guests that were religious and they have talked about like their experiences. And it sounds like you had a pretty difficult time growing up. And I'm from the South, so a lot of us were born and raised Bible thumpers. And then as we got older, really retracted back from that and tried to figure out what our real relationship was with everything. But it sounds like you went through a lot of dark moments there. And I'm curious, what was maybe your inner dialogue like if you were just trying to survive, what you said to yourself to help you survive? Because a lot of people probably would have given up. Maybe if they had been institutionalized, they would have wanted to commit suicide, or they would have stayed depressed, or they would have not gone out to help others. They may have gone out to hurt others because they were hurt. So I'm very curious, how did you find a way to make sure that your traumatic beliefs didn't actually become so detrimental to the rest of your life? What did you do to help you keep a mindset going?
You know, Amanda, I think I was just really fortunate in that I thought my mother was nuts. You know, so I didn't look at her as a wise woman or an authority figure. I looked at her as a burden I had to bear. And because I I looked at her that way, I was able to outwardly at least say, lady, you are not making any sense. But what it did do inwardly, and I did not recognize this part until I was in my 50s, was that it damaged my self worth. And that was why I had such a struggle of really rationalizing my professional life, which was very successful, to my private life, which was a bit of a mess. And it really was based on that lack of self worth, self awareness, self love, that whole area of really understanding who you are and discovering your own essence. And that's why I really start in my book, and I'm not just here to talk about the book, because what's to me is really important is the message, is the fact that our step one to embracing our wise woman within is discovering our essence and discovering who we are. And it's just like you were talking about what your moral compass is. And I'm going to tell a little story. And it's a little story about this supposed to lady and the real lady. And if you think about it, when you're first born, it's like they slip a suit of clothing on you. And it's like the helmet is what tells you what to think. And the sleeves tell you what you're supposed to touch and what's real and what's not. And the bodice is like it tells you, oh my God, this is how your heart is supposed to beat faster, or you're supposed to be scared, or you're supposed to feel okay or comfortable. And it's a suit of clothing that dictates how you function, really. And that's your supposed to suit. And that supposed to suit really comes from your family or from your society, you being in the South. I mean, and that really is a Bible thumping area. And you're looked at being not good. And, you know, the whole thing is we could spend an hour talking on that phrase, be good. Because what does be good for girls mean? It means don't say anything, look pretty, be compliant, go with the flow. And nobody ever says, oh, hallelujah, my girl is bad. My girl said no. People don't do that. They're proud of their good girls. See, that's all part of those supposed tos that you didn't define, but were defined by external forces. I think the real key element of discovering who we really are is being able to peel away those supposed tos and see which ones we really want to keep for ourselves. And I think that's really one of the fundamental problems between rationalizing the personal you and the professional you, is that supposed to suit.
Yeah. And that was one of the things I dealt with early on in the podcast. I just kind of opened it up. Like we talked about before we started the recording, I had this vision of myself for I was worthy and good, and I deserved the accomplishments that I had because I had achieved this really hard to get job, right? And I had claimed it when I was little, and my whole family's like, "Yeah, sure, okay, you'll go work there." No, okay, maybe. Like, and then I end up doing it, and I'm like, "Aha!" Like, see, I told you. And then 10 years in, you're kind of like, "Who was I doing that for? Was I doing that for me, or was I doing that because I was being praised as like, you're the accomplished child. You went to these schools, you got these scholarships, you got XYZ done, and we're so proud of you." And so much of my self-worth was based on me following through on what I said I was going to do. But once I realized, I guess, the path that I had chosen for myself, or I was told I should go down, ended up not working out the way I thought it was going to. It was really, really shocking to the system. And so, like, shedding that supposed to suit, even though the weight felt good coming off, it was a very difficult emotional thing to process as the weight was coming off, if that makes sense, as that suit was removed.
It's not only difficult, it's scary. It is scary because you had started this question asking about my mother's beliefs and the belief system and such. So when I was in my early 50s and I had a chance to travel, and I was able to really see evidence that was contrary to what my mother wanted me to believe. And so intellectually, I said, okay, I reject that, and this is where I'm at. But it's scary. It's scary to reject how you've been programmed.
Yes.
It's really scary. And I think because I personally went through that and I thought about it and I thought, my God, here I am. I don't have to really worry about supporting myself anymore. I don't have to worry about access to healthcare. I don't have to worry about access to information. I don't have to worry about big things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just scary to me. So then when I'm over in Africa and I'm working with these extremely marginalized people that have done what their ancestors taught them to do for centuries, and now it no longer works because of what we do here in the West and the environment and climate and so on and so forth, asking them to change their behavior and their belief system. And I remember looking at them thinking, oh my God, this has got to be so terrifying for them, because they don't have the support system that I had. They don't know where their next meal's coming from. They're sit here and they're in pain and all this stuff. And I'm asking them to believe what I'm saying, that their life will be better if they do what I say. But it gave me a great humility because I knew how afraid I was to reject something that I had evidence wasn't true. And I'm asking them to reject something just because they're desperate and they don't have a choice. I think on any of these situations, if we stop and allow ourselves to think and reflect, it's amazing what we learn.
Of course. That sounds like you have, or you were able to develop an incredible level of empathy for other people through your work, right? By being introspective enough about what happened to you and how you felt in that moment, you could go back and actually have the wherewithal. You weren't just being another white woman in Africa just coming to save people. You were like, oh, right, if I explain it this way, it might resonate better. Like, maybe I don't speak the language, or it's really hard to translate with my translator that's helping me. But like trying to explain to someone who maybe, like you said, uses their ancestral or cultural beliefs that informs a lot of their decision making. We don't do that in the West. Like, a lot of it's science and data based for the most part. for the most part in the United States. So it's
Don't go there.
right, yeah, for the most part. But yeah, so I think that that's great that you actually had the wherewithal to go, oh, that's why maybe they're uncomfortable or they're not doing what I'm asking yet. It's because you're asking them to let go of part of their identity, right? They identify with those stories and what they've been told to do, and letting go of it or not doing it may feel like a betrayal, possibly.
But so when you really think about that, here there are people in the world that are having to do that. And here we are in the comfort of our society, whether we be here in the US or in Australia or New Zealand or Denmark or wherever. And we feel fear, but yet we have such a safety net. And if we really stop and say, well, what's the worst that could happen? What if I fail? If I say I want to do this and I fail, is the earth going to open up and swallow me whole? I mean, what's going to happen? Probably nothing that big. You might get a little bit of a slap on your ego, but you're probably not going to miss a meal. You're probably not going to be forced out of the big comfort zone of your society. Maybe, but maybe not. So they gave me incredible strength. And it was so illuminating because we are resilient beings, and every single one of us here, everybody listening to us, you and I, we're survivors. We are here, and whatever we face, we're still standing, and we're resilient. We have that. We have that history of being resilient. So even if we're going through something painful today, I think it's important to stop and acknowledge that pain because it's real. But then after a moment, remind yourself you're still here. You're still breathing. You're still moving along. It'll be okay.
I think that that's good to remember the perspective shift. If you woke up today, it's because everything that you faced in your past, you overcame and you got to start over again. You got another day to either do better or try again or come up with another solution, whatever it is. So everything that you've already suffered through, everything that you've already been through or experienced that was difficult or an obstacle of some sort, you overcame it to get to where you are now. So if you failed before, you can recover again, just like you've done every other past time. So that's what I like to remind myself about a lot lately, that, yeah, I've been through some darker moments maybe, but again, I woke up today, I got to start over, I got to do this again, and it's okay. Failure is actually much more of a lesson that's supposed to get me to where I'm going to go. Failure and success are actually much more tied together. They're not actual polar opposites. Failure's feeding in, it's data feeding into my eventual success, rather. So it's not as big of a threat as I used to think about it being, right?
You know, one of my very favorite little sayings is um, learn to make a lot of little mistakes really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And get that cycle time pretty quick. Because if you become an expert little mistake maker, number one, you're not going to make big mistakes. And number two, you're going to always be learning and you're going to be having wonderful adventures. That's where the adventures lie. There's no adventure doing the same old thing over and over again. I mean, that gets really boring, right?
Yeah.
And it's fun to do something new and to experience something new. And it's not all going to work out, but that's okay because it'll open the door for another adventure, another opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. Well, let's talk a little bit about your adventure transitions. You did mention, like, in your 40s, you ended up selling your first business. Is that correct? And what made you decide to sell the business and retire early? And then when you realized you didn't like the retirement life, I guess, what kind of triggered you to try something new again? Like, what made you want to keep going?
Well, my second husband was the one that really was pushing me to sell the business. And and I agreed to sell it because it was more in a maintenance mode. And what really gets my juices going is creating and doing something new and having adventures and that kind of thing. And so it took about 5 years, but we sold the business and moved out to the West Coast. And what made me fail retirement was a couple things. One was I discovered that I'm really not a good follower. So I tried to do volunteer work but I don't know how to follow something that I think could be done better. And all I had experience was being the leader, being the boss. And that might sound funny to some people, but I always thought it would really be nice to know how to follow.
Sure.
And I didn't get that one. And then I thought, oh, it'd be good. I should try to play golf. Well, to me, that's the most stupid game in the world. That ball's too little and the stick is too skinny, and I'm not coordinated enough.
Yeah.
So that didn't work. And then I planted a garden with 3,000 plants that I planted myself.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I overachieved. Once I did it, it was beautiful. But then I'm not going to just sit and look at it. So I was really ready for new adventures. And then when I was traveling and I saw this little girl with the flies on her face, it was, oh my God, there's something I can figure out. Now, I didn't have any clue how I was going to figure it out, but I had faith in my ability to learn or to find the right people that could help me figure things out. And then I also wanted to get rid of that marriage. And if I moved to Africa and he didn't move there, that was good.
That would help. You'd be like, oh, great. Let me open the door into this conversation. I want to leave you, but by going to Africa.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And then the satellite phone wouldn't really work. So then I didn't really have to call, and one thing led to another, and I got rid of them. So sometimes it really is it's a matter of, well, I don't have the strength to confront something, but I'm going to change the situation in such a way that I don't have to confront it. I'm happy to say I have learned how to confront finally.
Yeah.
But I'm a slow learner on some of that personal stuff, but a little faster on the professional stuff. It's just like with what I'm doing right now. If you had asked me even a year ago if I was going to be a guest on a bunch of podcasts, I would have said, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I don't know how I'd feel about talking to a screen. I'm used to talking to a bunch of people and this and that. And here I am. This is a new career for me. And I love it. I love it. I love the fact that I get to meet people like you on a regular basis, that I get to explore different aspects of not just my life, but learn about other people's lives and understand what they're going through. And right now is a difficult time for a lot of people. And I really know what my purpose is right now. Right now, my purpose is to help people find inner peace. I can't change what's going on in the government and the outside world. I can't. I have no influence. But I do have an opportunity now to help people find some peace and to learn some skills. And I've put together a series of dream sequences, which is an acronym for desire, reflect, explore, acknowledge, and mantra, for all kinds of issues that people are free to access. And I feel good about that because that's within my power. So I think what I'm really trying to say in a very roundabout way is pay attention to where you are today. And number one, take the time to get to know you, the real inner you, and who you authentically are. And then let's learn some tools to navigate the chaos that surround us. And let's learn how we can become unfettered and free ourselves so that we're able to really be our true self. And then we're really able to find our peace. So it's a process, but we don't have to do it alone.
I like that. It makes it feel less daunting to face whatever darkness you're facing at that time. It's kind of like you've developed a modality, I'm assuming through the dream, and you've added that into your book, and it's an exercise you can take at your own pace. Like you're not being forced to. Maybe if you can only make it to the D and the R, then you can do the E.A.M later, like kind of a thing.
Right.
And so it's, I think that was really great that you found a way to integrate that in. Do you do the dream exercise after each chapter, or is it like supplemental to the book as a whole at the end?
Well, it started out being for each chapter. For example, the first chapter is winning with the cards you were dealt. because we all were dealt a deck of cards. And some were good, some were bad. And so then at the end of that chapter, what is really the D, the desire? Well, the desire is to be the best version of you can be with what you have, right? So then the R's reflect. Well, let's just think about then. Take the time to think about, well, what really are my strengths? And what are the things that I really need to just watch out for? And then when it comes to explore, then how can I really use this? And what are the ways that I can really use my strengths to become the best version of me? And then acknowledge, quite frankly, on this one, I think what I should have said for acknowledge is just acknowledge that life can really suck. It really can. And bad things can happen to good people. And you're a person and they could happen to you. But it really depends upon what are you going to do about it. So don't go around bemoaning that life's not fair. Just remember you've got a choice. So what are you going to do about it? And then I really think mantras are important. I do. I love writing little mantras,
Yeah.
little things to just say over and over in my mind to help me stay on track in that. So it started out, we had a dream for every chapter, for every point that we were trying to make. Then now, since I've started doing these podcasts, it's like, well, I really should have a dream sequence about this subject or about that subject or whatever. We keep adding them to my website, and people can go there and download a dream sequence that resonates for them. And there's no charge for it. My goal is to just help people find inner peace and more happiness.
Yeah, and I like that, or at least it's available for you to journal, I guess, rather. If you're not big into reading, but you still want to get the most out of the content that you're providing, applying the dream sequence to whatever thought process you're having could be helpful.
And just use mine as a springboard because other things will come up for you because you're the unique you. And when you come up with something, let me know. I mean, because maybe somebody else could use it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think right now we're in a wonderful place where we can share.
Yeah, I like that. What would be, you've mentioned a little bit, your dream sequences could apply to lots of different topics. And you did
Right.
mention having various relationships with love throughout your life, and you ended up finding your love of your life at the later on. What would be the dream sequence you would have given yourself back in your 50s when you had gone through your divorce? And a lot of people that are getting divorced these days probably feel really stuck or concerned with the fact that, like, this is what I thought I was supposed to be doing and now it ended and it was terrible and chaotic. Like, if somebody was going through a similar situation that you had been through with your different divorces, what would be the dream sequence you would want them to
Ooh,
practice?
boy. I think on something like that, there are a number of them because you really think about it. You've really got to go through a dream sequence for setting boundaries, for saying no and setting boundaries. You really need to go through a dream sequence for forgiving yourself and forgiving others. You need to go through one in regard to stepping out of your comfort zone because obviously you get into a zone and that's where you're comfortable. But if you want to change behavior, you've got to be able to step out of it. And so there's multiple ones. It's not a magic pill, but there are magic pathways, and it kind of goes back down to what we all know, Amanda. It's all about doing the work.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, which is hard. It's so hard. Like, knowing
Oh,
knowing you need to do the work, the acknowledgement's the first step, right? Like, knowing you need to do it, but actually following through and not letting yourself sit in denial, I guess, for forever isn't going to fix it. Avoiding it, pretending it's not there, burying it, throwing it in your closet, whatever metaphor you want to use right now, it doesn't change the fact that you still feel that way or that it still happened to you or that it was traumatic and bad and hurt. I'm curious, through your relationships, what has it taught you about love and timing and self-worth for you? Because I'm sure the rate or the pattern that you had or the timeline that you had probably wasn't what you were expecting either. So I'm curious, what did you learn about love and timing and self-worth?
it really goes down to the fact that I had some bad habits I had to get out of. And one of them was avoiding. And I had this period of life where I very definitely was a workaholic. That became my comfort zone. So that question is a really, really complex question, and it's something we probably should do another podcast on.
Oh, please
because
come back whenever you want.
It's because it's such it really is a complicated issue. For me, I think what it was, for me personally, what actually got me to say yes to Bill was, number one, he used to be a campaign manager, a very successful campaign manager, and I became his campaign, and he was used to winning. So I think there was part of that was there was a guy that was actually able to chisel away at my armor. And another one was the fact that I knew that I always had an escape hatch, and I ended up marrying him. But I didn't marry him because of need. I wasn't looking for him to fulfill a need in me. I wasn't needy. I dealt with all that crap. And so it was just a matter of, oh, yeah, it's a lot more fun when he's around. Yeah. And that's the big thing. And I've got a whole bunch on that. But it's the need versus the desire. And I'm not talking about physical desire. I'm talking about a choice of the companionship, the companionate type of love.
Yeah. And is that topic covered a little bit in your book, where you kind of explain your thought process through that and the differences you learned to recognize? Excellent. Okay. Well, anybody listening, make sure you grab a copy of this book. You're going to cover so many amazing topics that we can learn from, including love later on in life. Your book, The Magic of Yes, it's in the title. And we did talk a little bit about the word yes and how that impacted you later on and sparked the book. But your book speaks a lot about embracing curiosity. And I'm wondering, when you're looking back, was there ever a time when saying yes actually felt impossible?
I don't know, because whenever I had a little technique that I used when I got myself over my head, is I would just lower the bar so I could still win.
You're like, I got it. I made it. Yeah, that's how I feel in CrossFit when I'm trying to do a pull up and I'm like, I did it.
Yeah, just lower that sucker down a little bit and you'll be able to do it a little better.
Yeah, anybody that's a CrossFitter, I'm well aware that's not how it works. I know that. But this is what I tell myself. Like, you did great.
There's no, you know what? You can really be happy if you manage your expectations. I mean, that's really key, is managing your expectations. And expectations are very negotiable. And, the big problem is usually just yourself. I'm a really curious soul. I am. I have an awful lot of curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I get bored really easy.
Really? Well, yeah. I guess, yeah. You have a lot of really interesting hobbies, though, because now you're an accomplished gardener. You did try golf. You've opened multiple businesses. Now you're an author. Now you could be a future podcast guest for years to come, because this medium's not going anywhere. So if you get good at talking, they'll bring you on.
I could get good at talking.
You could get good at talking. Yeah, man. Just keep adding that to your resume. You'll be a superhero by the end of the year. And could you tell us a bit more about what your solutions were while you were working in Africa, and like some of the projects or things you did bring to the different countries or communities?
Well, I worked mostly in South Omo Valley and Ethiopia. That is where I worked.
Okay.
And I worked with about 6 different indigenous tribes. And we put in like 130 some wells, water schemes, schools, hygiene, sanitation training, a lot of behavior change training. One of the ones that was the most challenging was building demand for reproductive health, because a woman's worth in those areas is defined by how many babies they have. And so what our project was telling them to use birth control, which was absolutely countercultural. But my colleague was brilliant and came up with a methodology that helped them realize that having healthy children to follow the livestock was what was important, not the number of children. We did a big environmental project where we planted 122,000 moringa trees. Wow. Which is great because that's a source of food, source of medicine, plus income generating. We did women's empowerment. Like I said, I'm an overachiever. And we worked with about 100,000 people.
My goodness. That sounds phenomenal. How long were you is the philanthropy still running, or are you still making trips, or did you pivot and now you're kind of focusing on something different for your philanthropies?
Well, unfortunately, what happened is the country became very unstable and I had to leave. And the only thing we were able to save was our orphanage. Oh, I forgot that. We have an orphanage of vulnerable children. And our oldest orphan just graduated from high school and is now one of the only 3% of the Ethiopian youth are able to go to college, and Corey is one of those. So we're very happy about that. But I had to leave without saying goodbye, which is very, very difficult. And now I hope that by the end of the year, my granddaughter and I will be able to go back there if things are stable.
Right.
And that would be great.
Yeah. Well, and a special moment to share with her too, to kind of, show her like this was such a huge part of your life and like what
Yeah.
shaped you as a person, shaped you as a business owner, shaped you in your relationships too, and how you've chosen to live and show love to others. And I think that would just be such a special moment to share that together.
Yeah. Well, she's really special.
Yeah.
She's my gift.
Oh, that's wonderful. And does she like the arts as well? Is she into writing or anything else like you, or gardening
Um,
or golf?
she actually is a rocket engineer.
No. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
she
Wow.
is.
Well,
Yeah,
never
yeah.
mind. She'd probably be like, "You little podcaster, you want to talk about what? Your feelings?" And you're like, "Well, I can't do engineering. Like, I don't know anything about science. Like, I got biology down for the most part, like anatomy, physiology. I was really
Yeah.
into fitness for a long time and still am, but yeah, no, that's amazing. That's so cool. Yeah. Man,
Yeah,
girls can do anything, honestly. That
absolutely.
just
Yeah,
whatever you set your mind to. That's so impressive, and I'm sure a fascinating time for her as well, with so much
it
technology
is.
changing so quickly and space exploration being very serious. So that's cool. Yeah, nice. Well, if the readers could only walk away with one message from your book, what is the one message or one lesson you would want them to know?
I would say the one message would be try really, really hard, make it a priority to give yourself at least 5 minutes every day of just noticing what is going on in nature. I mean, if you're stuck in traffic, it's okay. You can count that 5 minutes. If you're looking at the flowers that are along the side, or if you're looking at the sky, the clouds. But nature is really the nurturing gift that we have here on earth. And 5 minutes, just give yourself 5 minutes, and that will put you on a path that will change your life. But you can't have music going on. You've got to be still. And even if you can't, and here's another thing, if you can't find the time during the day, go to sleep holding a little rock. And when you're laying in bed, feel that stone and feel how smooth it is and the energy that it contains. And you can do that for the 5 minutes before you fall asleep. But gift yourself 5 minutes of being with nature, really being with nature.
Great. Yeah, I love that. And I agree with you. Finding a way to ground yourself and reconnecting to the energy that's all around you, I think really helps people tap into their intuition as well. If you've been overstimulated for so long, or if you're coming from a background like I was, where it was either highly structured or highly militarized in certain ways, like learning to think and listen to yourself is a skill set that you have to redevelop sometimes. So that's wonderful. I think that's great advice. So I just have the last few kind of core questions that I usually ask all of my guests for the show. Since you talk about being an overachiever, what would you say has been your greatest achievement?
Okay, as long as I don't have to say that I've totally aced it yet. Can
That's
it be
fine.
one I haven't aced?
Sure.
Okay, I would say that I'm right in the middle of my greatest achievement, and that is transitioning from being known for doing and being a doer, and transitioning into becoming a source of peace, love, and harmony. That's what I so much want to be. But it's really hard because it is like 180 degrees from somebody that's been known for accomplishment.
Hmm.
But that's going to be. my greatest achievement.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to get there.
Yeah. To go from doing to being. Yeah.
And becoming a source of peace, love, and harmony, which means that I'm in that being state.
I like that. I think it's a wonderful achievement to aim for. How do you define success, and what does success look like to you?
Well, it definitely has changed over the years. It's changed dramatically over the years. At first, it was the number of customers that I could get in my for-profit business. Then it was the number of people that I could help and the number of projects I could help. And now, what success looks like, if I can help one of your listeners find greater peace, that will have been a successful podcast. One listener. So if one of you out there have been able to take some little gem out of our conversation, please put it in your review of Amanda's podcast, and she'll make sure that I hear it. But if I could have had, that would be success to me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful way to gauge that. And definitely anybody like, subscribe, leave a review, 5 stars, and let us know what you enjoyed learning from Lori today. What advice would you give someone who is listening, who feels stuck or lost or kind of disillusioned and trying to search for meaning in their life? What advice would you give someone that's going through that?
I would say if right now you're feeling stuck, say, oh my goodness, this is such a phenomenal opportunity because I'm not going anywhere. I'm stuck right here. So since I'm stuck here, I'm just going to start thinking a little bit and reflecting on what I've done. And I'm going to just take this as an opportunity of quiet for me because I'm stuck. I'm not going anywhere. And it's a lot easier to have that space to think about what you've done and where you are and possibilities if you're not moving. So celebrate that you're no longer on the spinning wheel like a gerbil running. You're stuck. So it can be a good thing. There's always a flip side to everything. Always. There's always a flip side.
Yeah, I love that because you're trying to find joy in a moment that often feels very terrifying.
It does. And acknowledge that you feel pain. Acknowledge it. Say, sweetheart, I do feel pain. I am in pain. But I know that in the next moment, I'll breathe. I'll be still breathing, and I'll have survived this terrible moment, and I'll have survived this pain. And now I'm stronger.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I'll probably re-listen to this portion of the episode many, many times because
Good.
often it's the most powerful thing you react to is the sound of your own voice with those positive affirmations, I've noticed, or at least based on the neuroscience research I've done. You saying it to yourself tells your brain to change those neural pathways, to have those new reactions, to start looking for those different signs in the universe or different signs in your current environment that show you that you are worthy, you are moving forward, you are getting the growth out of this moment, whether it's tragic or not. If you choose to believe that it's there, you can find it and you can take advantage of that. So I love that you're offering a way for the listeners to change their mindset.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, it's okay to stop looking. Just even stop looking.
Oh, yeah.
Just hold that little rock and just try to think about that. And you know what? It'll come to you. And it's your voice comes through your intuition. It does. But in order for our intuition to have the amplification it needs to get our attention, we have to be quiet. And we have to stop trying to control everything.
Oh, that's so hard for a type A.
I know.
For a type A person like us, yeah, the overachievers. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. I actually had to do an intervention on myself. I was lying in bed at night in Ethiopia, and all of a sudden I realized my mind had been such a bully all my life. It always wanted to be in control, and it never was really giving my body and my spirit the space it needed for them to have a voice. And so we made a deal that my mind could be in charge of spreadsheets and schedules and all that type of stuff. And my body was just going to be able to keep on doing what it was doing, which was being that structure that allowed me to function. But the part of me that was going to be in charge was my spirit, that my spirit got to become the boss. And it takes a lot of reminding, but it's an interesting concept.
And I'm going to have to sit with that one for a while too, to see if I can reconcile between the three, because they all, that makes me think of that Disney, I guess it's Pixar actually, the Inside Out, where the little emotions are like running through the girl's head and they're fighting for all the different things to get her access to stuff, or like to control the brain and living in there. But it's, when you watch the opposite of her show up, it's the essence of who she is conflicted and coming out. And it's because you're trying to reconcile your head and your heart and your emotions and all that kind of stuff. So that's a good one to sit with. I appreciate that. That'll be a reflective opportunity for me. All right, my final question. If you could give yourself advice 10 years ago, what would it be?
10 years ago. Okay, let's see. I'm 75. 10 years ago, I would have been 65. I would have been in Ethiopia managing all these projects. I think it would have been, but I started reflecting, and I think the advice I would have given, if I had the wisdom then that I had the wisdom now, would be, okay, Lori, you're good. You're on the path that's going to lead to that peace. Congratulations for finally getting on that path to find that.
But that's good. I like that. That it's again another joyful message to give yourself. I think you did it. You made it. Yeah. Keep going.
On the path.
Yeah, you got on the
I didn't
path.
get to the end of it.
Yeah. You got on the path. Stay on it this time.
Yeah.
No frolicking off. Okay. Well, Lori, this has been one of the best episodes. I had so much fun talking with you today and learning so much more about your book and everything that you're offering, the women in your groups and the support systems you have available for anyone that wants to consume more of your content. What is the best way to, there's my dog. What is the best way to reach out to you or connect? How can they find your book? Anything you would like to promote?
Okay, so the best avenue really is my website, and that's loripappas.com. So LORIPAPPAS.com. Because in there you've got connection to the book, you've got connection to my newsletter, connection to the dream sequences, connection to the Facebook group, the Wise Woman Sisterhood is all there. And the book is The Magic of Yes. Don't forget.
That's right. Everybody go and grab a copy of that, The Magic of Yes, and change your life today as soon as you get it. Lori, thank you so much. Everybody, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, leave a review like we've talked about. Lori would love to hear your feedback. I would love to hear your feedback. So if you enjoyed listening to this show or watching on YouTube, send us a comment. We'd love to engage and hear what you enjoyed, or if you want us to dive deeper in a part 2 episode, we'd be more than happy to set that up and keep it going. This was great. So send us all that. I will put Lori's information in the description notes. You can find me hello@podcastforthelost.com. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, so you'll have all those links as well. And remember, wanderers are always welcome.